What is up, Broncos fans? The Denver Broncos show back again, here to do another video. In this video, I'll be previewing the Broncos' upcoming game against the Seattle Seahawks, of course, here in Week 3 of the NFL season. Broncos looking to go in 3-0 this season against Seattle on Sunday. This is a huge game. Obviously, this is the rematch that Broncos fans and I'm sure Seahawks fans have been waiting for several months now. Obviously, the last time we played the Seattle Seahawks in a meaningful game was in Super Bowl 48, and they kicked our ass. They embarrassed us on national TV. They were the better team. They won a world championship and beat us by 35, 43-8. That's the only score that the Broncos fans and the Broncos players and coaches have been thinking about for the past 7 months is 43-8. And I mean, Seattle is a phenomenal team, and they're a great organization, and it starts from the top and obviously goes all the way down to their fans. They got a great owner in Paul Allen. They got a great GM in John Snyder. They got a great head coach in Pete Carroll. They got phenomenal players, obviously, from Russell Wilson to Richard Sherman to Bobby Wagner, Michael Bennett, Marshawn Lynch, Earl Thomas. List goes on and on. And then obviously the phenomenal fan base there that the Seahawks have in Seattle. I mean, this is just a first-class organization, and this is a great team that the Broncos are going to be facing on Sunday afternoon. And I can promise you that if the Broncos play the way they did against the Chiefs and Colts this Sunday against the Seattle Seahawks, we're going to get embarrassed again by this team. And we're going to lose by a lot of points in this game. We're definitely going to lose by double digits. So the Broncos' focus really needs to be there. And I think the Seattle Seahawks are the best team in football. And I think if Broncos fans or the media wants to point to what the Chargers did to Seattle as something the Broncos can do, or as a blueprint the Broncos can utilize, I think you're just fooling yourself. I mean, for one, that game was on the road. It was in San Diego. And secondly, we're not the San Diego Chargers. We're the Denver Broncos. We have completely different personnel than them. This is a completely different matchup. They're a different team than us. And just because Seattle lost on the road to what is a very good San Diego Chargers team doesn't mean that they somehow have been exposed now. Again, in my opinion, this is the best team in football, and we are playing them, in their stadium at home on their turf. Where they are virtually unbeatable. I think they've lost one game in like their last 18 or 19 games. I think Russell Wilson's only lost one game as a starter there at Qualcomm Stadium in Seattle. So this is a completely different game than the Seahawks-Chargers game last week. And again, I don't know if anyone knows this, but San Diego's a pretty damn good team. They're well coached. They got a very good, young, feisty defense there, and they got a phenomenal offense led by one of the most underrated and best quarterbacks in the NFL, in Phillip Rivers. And I've been saying it for 2 years now. I said it going into last season, and I said it going into this season. San Diego scares me more than any team in the AFC, and they are our biggest threat in my opinion. They showed it last year. They were the only team to beat us at home last year, and they obviously played us really tough in the playoffs last season. So for Seattle to lose to San Diego and somehow be exposed, I just don't buy it. And again, I don't think there's any shame for Seattle to lose by what they lose by 8 or 9 points on the road to the Chargers. There's no shame in that. That's a good San Diego Chargers team. So I expect Seattle to play their best. I expect them to learn from the mistakes they made last week against the Chargers, and I expect them to be, on their best game, and I expect them to play as well as they ever have played. And again, this is a extremely tough team to beat at home, and Qualcomm Stadium is no joke. That 12th man up there in Seattle is no joke. So this is just going to be a difficult atmosphere for the Broncos to go in and play in, let alone win in. So from an offensive standpoint, it really starts for the Broncos in this game with the offensive line. They got to do a better job protecting Peyton Manning. You saw in Super Bowl 48 that Seattle's defense did a good job of pressuring him, and our offensive line's got to be more physical than their defensive line. We got to hit Michael Bennett, Brandon McBain, Bruce Irvin, those guys up front. For Seattle, you got to hit those guys in the mouth. Again, you got to earn their respect. You got to show them that you're going to be there all game long from a physicality standpoint. And that starts with Manny Ramirez, Ryan Clady, Luis Vasquez, Orlando Franklin, Chris Clark. That offensive line unit has to play physical and win the battle in the trenches at the point of attack. And give Peyton Manning some time. Allow him to try to outsmart what is a very smart secondary for the Seattle Seahawks. And again, we got to protect the ball. We had 4 turnovers in Super Bowl 48. You can't give this team, this defense, opportunities like that to convert on your mistakes, and you can't give them openings to take advantage on and capitalize like that. So not turning the ball over. Peyton Manning's got to make some smart throws here. And then I want to see the Broncos receivers play physical. Seattle's secondary did a great job of being physical with our receivers in the Super Bowl, really kind of jamming them at the line and taking them out of the game. And Julius Thomas, Demaryius Thomas, Wes Welker, Emmanuel Sanders, now those guys got to be physical back. They got to hand fight with the defensive backs of Seattle, with Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor, Richard Sherman, Byron Maxwell, those guys in that secondary. And Julius Thomas is got to take advantage of the mismatch that he's going to have against Bobby Wagner and Malcolm Smith. Obviously, two very talented linebackers that Seattle has. They're both athletic. They're both really smart in coverage, good in coverage. But Julius Thomas can get open on those guys, and he's got to be more aggressive. He was almost non-existent in Super Bowl 48. Julius Thomas has got to wake up here, and he's got to do some damage in the red zone, especially Jacob Tamme as well. And I think for the Broncos also offensively, we got to look to confuse the secondary, throw different looks at them. When one play have Demaryius Thomas lined up with Richard Sherman, the next play have Julius Thomas, Wes Welker, Emmanuel Sanders. I think would be a big X factor in this. Put him against Byron Maxwell, exploit that mismatch, because you saw Demaryius Thomas kind of have his way with Byron Maxwell in the preseason. I think that's a mismatch we can attack. Peyton Manning's got to be aggressive. Put Emmanuel Sanders on Maxwell. Let's go deep. You got to attack this defense, and you got to attack Richard Sherman. Again, people act like Richard Sherman was exposed last week. He helped Keenan Allen to 5 catches for 50 yards. That's a damn good game. And at any given point, Richard Sherman can take a whole side of the field away for an offense and completely change how you play one side of the field. He's a very smart player. He can make tackles in the run game, and he's a physical, quick cornerback who's phenomenal in coverage. He'll run the receiver's route for them. So you got to be smart in your approach attacking Richard Sherman, and I think that starts with kind of throwing multiple wide receivers at him, multiple looks at him, and not being afraid to attack him. But again, I think Julius Thomas in the red zone, and Julius Thomas in general needs to take advantage, needs to attack Cam Chancellor, needs to attack Bobby Wagner, and he needs to be more aggressive. Again, he was non-existent in Super Bowl 48. That's something I think the Broncos need to look to get going, is Julius Thomas and then Emmanuel Sanders as well. And we're getting Wes Welker back. Obviously, that's a big deal. You got to win on third down. We were horrible last week on third down. You play that same way offensively here against this defense, it's going to be a long game, and you're going to get blown out. So third down will also be a key for the Broncos offense on Sunday against what is a phenomenal defensive unit in Seattle. Containing Marshawn Lynch is going to be a big deal for us here in this game. Sealing the edge in the run game, that's Derek Wolfe, Malik Jackson, Von Miller, DeMarcus Ware. They got to do that, and beating up that Seattle Seahawks offensive line, beating them up, being more physical. Terrence Knight eating up space, Marvin Austin, those big boys up front, just pushing the pocket and kind of establishing their presence early on, especially from a physicality standpoint. I think it's going to be a big deal for us defensively. You give Russell Wilson as much time and as much space that you did Alex Smith last week, he's going to tee off on you and go off on you just like he did in Super Bowl 48. We did a poor job of that as well. We got to do a good job of containing the edge against Russell Wilson, getting that initial pass rush to collapse the pocket, and then sealing the edge against him when he tries to break outside to make throws on the run, get in his face, make him throw contested throws, and just keep the pressure on him. And maybe Miller, DeMarcus Ware, they got to be X factors in this game, especially Von Miller, because he wasn't there for Super Bowl 48. Neither was DeMarcus Ware, but obviously Von Miller missed that game due to injury. He's obviously a huge key in this game, and he could be an X factor, especially sealing the edge not only in the run game, but against Russell Wilson, not allowing him to break outside and make some plays with his legs, get 20, 30 yards off, scrambles on, long third downs like we did Alex Smith. You can't do that here, especially on the road against Russell Wilson. So that's going to be a big key. Lastly, you got to be aware of where Percy Harvin's going to have some big plays in Super Bowl 48. Obviously, he adds a whole nother dimension and kind of adds a new dynamic to what is already a very athletic and explosive Seahawks offense. So our defense has just got to be aware of where he is at all times. Seahawks do a good job of lining him up all over the place. And again, our secondary's got to be aware. Last week we had some lapses in coverage and also had some poor penalties as well defensively. So you just got to, defensively, our secondary, you got to be smart in this game. Be aware. Don't let the crowd get to you. Don't give this offense some momentum. Get off the field on third down, and obviously being aware of Percy Harvin, limiting his big play opportunities in this game. Starts with the keep to lead, Chris Harris, the safeties, Raheem Moore and TJ Ward. Just got to know where Percy Harvin is and be physical with him. If they're gonna run some end arounds with Percy Harvin, lay him out. If he's going to look to explode and try to get to the edge before him and hit him. We got to be physical with this team. So earning their respect, I think, is the biggest key in this game. For the Broncos as a team in general, but definitely on both sides of the ball, you got to match Seattle's physicality and kind of hit them in the mouth first, kind of let them know you're there. So this is a big game for us. And lastly, I think for the Broncos, here's the reality. We're the underdog in this game. We're not expected to win by anybody. So we got nothing to lose. We got to play like a team that's got nothing to lose. Again, I think from a talent standpoint, we're every bit as good as this team. And if we kind of play like the underdog, play like we have nothing to lose, and kind of play loose, and like I said, a statement game for both teams. And it's going to take the Broncos' best effort and then some on Sunday to get a win on the road in Seattle. So looking forward to it. Should be a great game between two great teams. Leave me a comment below with what you think of this game, whether you're a Broncos fan, a Seahawks fan, a football fan. Give me your preview for this game on Sunday between the Broncos and the Seahawks, obviously Super Bowl 48 rematch, and who you think is going to win here between the Broncos and Seahawks. Again, I think it's going to take a great effort from the Broncos to win. It's definitely a game we can win, but we got to do a lot of things right, and Seattle definitely is the favorite. We got nothing to lose. We got to play like a team that's got nothing to lose. So thank you for watching, guys. I appreciate the support as always. Looking forward to Sunday. Should be a great game against the Seattle Seahawks. And as always, go Broncos. Hopefully we can keep it rolling and get to 3-0. Talk to you guys after Sunday.